In 2D fighting games, where do you spend most of your time? You might say in your opponent's face. This is true, but there are other places you'll spend your time in that are just as important as being in your opponent's face. They are the three areas of action: space, point blank, and the air. Let's discuss what these areas are and what happens in them so you can better understand what's going on in the game. Let's begin with space. Space. No, not that kind of space. I'm talking about this kind of space, the area between two characters, or what I like to call room for error. Most of the time when you're in this area, you're analyzing, thinking, and concluding on decisions that will decide how the rest of the match will go, all the while keeping the opponent at bay. You'll have less engagement with your opponent in this situation, as opposed to being up in their face, at point blank. Here you'll be faking your moves to bait your opponent so you can punish them, or you'll be controlling all that space by poking them very far away, setting down traps, or completely blocking their way of movement. Like I said earlier, you're strategizing your approach here. Pay attention to their movement, their reactions to your actions, and how they approach. Once you finalize your thoughts, apply them patiently and hope for the best. Next, being at point blank. Now you've formulated a plan against your opponent and you're on the offense, or you're holding on for dear life on defense. Regardless, you're in your opponent's face now. In this situation, you're either attacking or defending. Whether it's in the middle of the screen or in the corner, you're making decisions based on what is hit or blocked. Unlike the last position, you'll find the most engagement with your opponent here. Here you'll be applying pressure and trying to deal as much damage as possible, or trying to defend and keep up with your opponent's pressure. You could call this the rock, paper, scissors part of the game, although sometimes it may be 50-50. You'll see the use of frame data frequently here, opposed to at a range, since moves are harder to punish at a range. On both sides, be considerate of your decisions and be aware of your risks. Finally, you're in the air, a place where both offensive and defensive strategies come into play. Here, you'll be doing just that. You'll be applying pressure, evading your opponent's moves, closing the gap, or creating more space. Some games may offer a variety of options to use while in the air, while some games may only provide one or two. The air basically has the same principles as space and point blank, but this can depend on the game. I won't spend time talking about what is possible in the air in some games, as I believe the video would take too long. But for the majority of games, closing the gap, creating space, attacking, and evading can be done. Now you know where the positions are and what happens in them. I'll give you some general tips for what you can do when you find yourself in situations similar to the ones that I mentioned. When you're spaced, I recommend the following. Do not rely on baiting them so much. Be conscious of how many times you throw out fake moves. If you have open space, patiently take back the space. If you're always rushing in, you can easily be interrupted. Try to use the longest normal moves available to you when you're in the neutral area. The farther and longer your move is, the better. When you're point blank, I recommend the following. If you're doing a block strain, dance between delayed attack buttons and fast attack buttons if possible. This is to keep your opponent blocking and catch them off guard if they're not ready. Walking in and out of your opponent's throw range to bait them into throwing has always been a classic trick to get damage. Try it out. Try to focus on using plus frame moves up close and minus moves when you're pushed out. This is to minimize risk of getting hit by your opponent when pressuring. When you're in the air, I recommend the following. Always try to air throw if possible. It's free damage and a great counter to air movement. Try to have your opponent defend in the air. Characters with strong ways of controlling the air, like characters with air fireballs, are great for controlling and limiting the use of the air. This is to prevent them from approaching. Don't overdo your movement when you're in the air. You can easily be dealt with if you're always flying in. Approach via the air when the time is right. Use back air dashing to create space or evade. Try to approach forward via the ground. Hopefully you learned a thing or two by watching this video. It might seem like a lot to take in, but don't sweat it. Just be patient and try to apply what I said. If you have any questions, please leave a comment. Thank you for watching.